And welcome back, everyone. So, as I said when I did my prediction of where Gen 10 was going to take place, that once a month I was going to dole out another video. Now, they're not going to be as all fancy and bells and whistles as the other one was with the editing. That was terrible. I don't actually edit. I just have my OBS and I time the images and try to get them out of the way. So, they're not going to be like this. This is more just like a discussion kind of thing of Gen 10 and about Gen 10, more importantly, what Gen 10 needs to do to improve itself over Generation 9. And on a side note, the question we're going to start out with actually is Gen 10 even going to be on the Switch? Now, I've heard a lot of the PokeTubers. Birdkeeper Toby's one of the big ones who's been kind of implying this, that Gen 10 very likely will be on the next console after the Switch. So the Switch is going to basically become phased out soon into the next version. And that is certainly possible. I mean, eventually the Switch is just going to get some sort of upgraded version. But the thing is, I don't think we're going to see Gen 10 on the next gen. I think Gen 10 is still going to be on the Switch. My reasoning for that is this in twofolds. When we look at each generation of games, you can look at that either from the main series game or all the games that came in along with the main series games. What happened? We had the first Game Boy. All that was Pokemon Red and Blue, and then Yellow. I think Yellow was on the Color. Now I think about it. Then you had Gen 2, which was on the Game Boy Color, and that had Yellow, Crystal, Silver, and Gold, plus any extra games you had there. Great. So that's again two technical generations, just two individual generations on one system. Then you had a Game Boy Advanced. You had Ruby, Sapphire, and the remakes for Red and Green there. Again, one generation on the Advanced. And then the DS came out. And the DS, from a hardware's perspective, was an entirely different beast from the Advanced. It was still compatible with the Advanced games. You could still play them on there. But yeah, and that's kind of the thing with all these generation games, that you can actually play the previous generation games until you went from the 3DS to the Switch on the previous generation. But now you had a system that could do a lot more effectively with better graphics and all that. So we got two generations. We had Diamond and Platinum, and we had not Diamond and Platinum, well, Diamond, Platinum, and Pearl, and we had Black and White, plus their sequel games, plus a remake. We had two different generations of Mon there, and one different generation and one remake, plus a sequel game, plus two other sequel games. So right there. And I disagree with the notion that the generations are done by the games now. That's clearly not the case. It's actually very clearly not the case. They're done by the systems, not the games. Because then you go into the 3DS era, and you had X and Y, you had the Ruby and Sapphire remakes, then you went into Sun and Moon, then you went into the Sun and Moon sequels, and at that point you were stretching what the system could do, but you still had two whole generations. And again, the 3DS is a completely different beast than the DS. Better graphical capabilities, the 3D compatibility. You were able to do a lot more varieties, things, so forth like that. And then it ultimately went to the Switch. And again, the Switch as a device is a completely different is a completely different monster entirely, because now you're talking about a system that acts as both a console and a stationary console and a handheld console. The power of it, at least the original Switch, was a little janky. You didn't get everything perfectly, but you were able to have. And then we got like the OLED, and we got the Switch Lite, which I have a Switch Lite. And they're graphically, systematically, occasionally there's bugs with certain games, like Scarlet and Violet. They are able to handle far more than any other console prior. And the evidence to suggest that, and what have we had so far? We've had Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu. Technically, they're technically still Gen 7, by the way. Then you have Sword and Shield. You had Pokemon Snap. You had Legends, you had Scarlet and Violet, and now we're going to get the DLCs with that, plus any extra game coming out in the next year or so. They are just capable of handling so much more than any previous system prior that it's very likely we're going to get one more generation out of this system before they upgrade to whatever the next one is. And the question then also becomes, how do you just upgrade the Switch beyond, just maybe just making a better version of the Switch? It's the similar concept of, how do you make it the Game Boy better? We'll put it in color. Then you make it compact. I love the SP Advance, by the way. Mine's still up in my room somewhere. It doesn't work anymore, but it's still up there. Then you make it, then you go with the flip, then you get better hardware. So it's like, how do you keep evolving? But there's the way to evolve the Game Boy was kind of obvious to a certain degree. The way to evolve the frickin' Switch is not as obvious. Yeah, better engine, all that for better graphics, so forth and so on. But I mean, look at the PSP, the portable PlayStation. That was an innovative thing in its own. But the problem still comes that, how do you advance that and justify people buying the new thing? That, I think, is another problem. It's like, well, we already got the Switch, and this is what, a slightly better version? How? How do you justify it when, again, you have games like Tears of the Kingdom is the new one, and Breath of the Wild, which graphically are beautiful, and have all these, systems in place, and all these, NPCs, and all this going. You have all this going on. How do you make that work, or how do you go beyond that? Like, how do you just make games that look like live action at that point? So yeah, it's a tricky line to cross. Eventually, they will do it. It's money; they'll figure it out. But and people will buy it. I'm sure I will too. But the more important thing is, I think we've still got at least another generation of Pokemon on the Switch, because, and this is where we get into what Generation 10 can do better. Well, I'm already replaying Scarlet and Violet right now, and I'm still having a blast doing it. There are things you can fix, first and foremost. While the visual effects of Pokemon have never been the important thing about it, for an immersion, it does help. Because let's be honest, up until Gen 6, we were dealing with freaking with just little bit graphics, solid animation style and all that, design, art, all that, but it was nothing. It was barely anything. We were happy to have those, and we never really complained until we got into the 3D, and then people just decided, now that we're in 3D, we want to complain because we're in 3D now. And I get it, we want it to look the best it can, but I think we focus on the wrong things with the game sometimes, and I think focusing on the graphics, well, isn't necessarily the wrong thing. It's not even in the top 10 things to be focusing on, a minimum top 5. But that said, graphically it looked good, but there are texture issues, there are movement issues when you're moving to like a certain location where like the stone almost looks like it's moving like water. There are definitely things that can be improved upon. That being said, though, graphically, like the Pokemon themselves, especially when they're in the fight, texturally they look great. They really do. They look good. So I think it's just where they were able to, not cut corners per se, but where they stressed the animation and stressed the visuals, they kind of lost a little bit in the rest of it. So the animation can definitely be improved to the next gen. But related to the animation or the look of the world is the animation itself. Because, let's not mince words, it got janky at points. Anytime I look at those damn windmills, either in the, I can't remember the name of the town with the grass gym, but the one with the grass gym, or those like turbine windmills, you can just see the lag going. And even if you're walking and running, you can see the lag of people and a Pokemon moving. There is jank. There's jank if you fall in the wrong spot. I remember I was playing a few days ago and I fell off a stone and I got caught in a position. I'm like trying to move it around, maybe try to have it land properly, but ultimately it kind of like blacked out and then restarted. And everything was fine. I didn't lose anything, but I'm like, okay, I restart from this position. Okay, let's try again. And that's an issue with gameplay. It is. I remember when the first reviews were coming out that Scarlet and Violet had a lot of bugs in them, and they've been patching the bugs ever since. But really, what we want is a game without the bugs. So, or at least as few bugs as possible. And maybe this was as few as bugs as possible for them. So, I think that's definitely something Gen 10's got to do more effectively. And here's the big thing. We've had now 2 generations, 3 if you want to get technical with the last Gen 7 game. Because if I'm not mistaken, Pokemon Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu are classified as Gen 7 games. 1 second. I'm getting... Actually, I don't even need that up. I can just go here. Let's see here. Gen 6... Pokemon Go. Yep, Let's Go Eevee and Let's Go Pikachu are classified as Gen 7 games, but they're on the Switch. So, right now for Gen 8, we have Shield and Sword, Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl, Legends Arceus. I forgot that. But Shining Pearl and Brilliant Diamond, that's for obvious reasons. Now we have Scarlet and Violet. We have Snap. We have Pikachu Return. Detective Pikachu is coming out. We have all these games on the Switch now. They've constantly, and if we look at the evolution between the graphics and the jank from Generation 8, from Shield and Sword, to, let's just say, Legends, for example, there was obviously a graphical uptick. They still wasn't fully open world, but it was their dip into true open world. Even the wild area was their pinky, then you put a hand with Legends, and now we had the full body go into the pool of open world with Scarlet and Violet. And there was still, particularly with the trees, I find there's a bit of artistic. But then again, you're doing something Pokemon's never done. You're doing a completely open world where there's got to be constant AIs for Pokemon all around, moving and reacting. You've got to have constant battles, constant systems going on. You've got to have, maybe not constant battles, but you also have to have special Demon show up. You have to have the AIs reacting in specific ways, story beats that have to be hit. It's a tricky endeavor for this type of game to do. And the fact that it went as smoothly as it did, I think, is a real achievement. But this is something that they can still improve on, where they can improve on the janky animation. They can make, and this goes into my next point, I want to see the Mon be a little bit more reactive. They're kind of, they have their motions, they have their spots they're allowed to be in, but I do want to see them be a bit more reactive. Maybe actually interact with each other in the world, kind of like what you get with Pokemon Snap. If a Zangoose, I saw a Zangoose and a Seviper in the same spot, they weren't doing a damn thing. And obviously by the Pokedex entry, they should have been going at each other's throats. So I would love to see something like that where Mon actually interacted with each other in the wild, not just stay in groups. So something like that would be really good. I would love, and so the diversity of Mon, whatever, that is what it is. You get the big Pokedex in the game. Then you get the DLCs which introduce more. So that's all well and good. It's all fine. But here's the next thing they got to improve on, in my opinion, and that's the open world concept. Not the fact that we have an open world or we need to do something different than the open world. No, what I mean by that is because now every game going down the road is most likely going to be a variation on the open world. If it's not a full open world, it's going to be something closer to maybe like Legends Arceus or whatever. But either way, they have to keep doing something new with the concept of the open world. What I mean by that is look, you can go wherever you want, great, so forth and so on. They need to, first off, you're not going to be able to have your legendary Pokemon be your Rhydmon every game. That can't be the case. That was a unique perspective for this first game, but now we have to have a new concept. My guess, though, is you're going to have some sort of Rhydmon or vehicle, be it a bike, a new Pokemon that's just kind of like the Cyclizar that you get, and you're going to be able to traverse it through there and have different upgrades. My guess is the next gen isn't going to have them on. It's going to have your bike, and your bike's going to be able to upgrade as you go through the game. But then the question is, how do you do something different than how do you do something different from what Scarlet and Violet did? Because what Scarlet and Violet did, really once you finish the game, you still have the raids, you still have, like, shiny hunting, all that. You still have the tournament. Yeah, it had, honestly, a solid little post-game. It wasn't amazing, but it was a good post-game, I think. It was one of the better post-games, at least in recent years. But at least it's a better post-game than, say, Gen 1. It's a better post-game than Gen 4. It's a better post-game than Gen 7, yeah. And it's a better post-game than Gen 8. So, yeah, actually, it falls in the better half of the post-games. I actually just watched Emperor Cubon's video about the post-games, and I think it actually ranks higher than how he puts it. But I digress. So beyond that, but they had literally 3 separate storylines you could do in any order, at any time, in any way, at any point. How do you go beyond that? I think what you do is you continue that structure, because if Pokemon is known for one thing, it's repetition. But you change up the gyms are a must. The gyms, because what I appreciated Sun and Moon, I did. I rather would have had gyms. I really would have. Again, and you know what? They still carried over kind of the totem aspect of the totem Pokemon with the Titan Pokemon. So you could still have a concept like that in Gen 10. And that's how you unlock something. Maybe it's how you unlock your ride, but that would just literally be a copy-paste of Scarlet and Violet. Maybe it's how you accessed the ability to use TMs, or HMs. Like, maybe we have something like moving boulders again. Puzzles would be a cool idea, especially in an open-world setting. Do puzzles like Zelda. That would be really cool. So, and then we had a little bit of that in Sun and Moon. You could still use, like, TMs, I keep saying TMs, HMs like Strength, for example, or Cut. So maybe you actually have locations that you do need certain abilities to get to, or you have to go through so much of the game to get to them without them that it's just not worth it to do it without the TM. I keep saying TM, HM, but there's that. The gyms stay the same. I keep those the same. We need an actual evil team again, I think. Look. Love Team Rocket. They're the OGs. Great. Magma and Team Magma and Team Aqua. I love the concept of 2 different teams for the version you have. And they want the same thing, just different concepts of the same thing. And the other team isn't necessarily the good guys, but they're there to help you. Aqua and Magma, I think, were really ahead of their time, and they did not capitalize on that the way they should have. Then you had Team Galactic. They're still an evil team. They're evil. They want to wipe out the universe. Team Plasma, parading as good guys, then turned out to be evil. Team Flare is a bit of a misstep, admittedly. They're still a bad guy team, but they're not that great. Team Skull is not even the real evil team. Like, they're troublemakers, and they still act like that. But now you're getting into not so evil. Now you're getting into, now that these are the real bad guys. Then you got Team Yell, who aren't even villains at all. They're just groupies. And you get the chairman, I can't remember what his name was, Rose. Chairman Rose, who's the bad guy. And now you have Team Star, which are not bad. They're not bad guys. They're not villains. If anything, the technical villain of the game is the Professor's robot. So, and it's the mean Koraidon, or Miraidon, depending on your version. I have Scarlet. I disagree with to the people who like Miraidon over Koraidon, that's your personal opinion. It's just a robot. Whereas Koraidon is an actual feathered, almost like serpent-type dragon. I think it's like supposed to kind of like Aztec inspired. Like, Koraidon's a really cool design. I'll admit, I wish the tire was a little smaller, but still, it's like puffing out his chest. I think that's a great design. Miraidon's just to me. But yeah, we need an evil team back. We need it back. Because we need that threat to the region again. We really do. Hell, if it is what I think it is theorized in Australia, easily you could have it several different ways. I'm not saying the Aboriginals were villains in real life. They were not. They got fucked over hard. But what I would say is you could have people who are descendants of the original land of whatever the Australian region is come back and try to claim it again, making it. I'm trying to think of the best comparison I could here. Which would make the closest villain I can think of. Actually, the closest villain I can think of is, weirdly enough, it's Lysander, because he was trying to create an ultimate weapon for like peace to some degree, but it was honestly he was the pain of the Pokemon. He was the if you know Naruto, he was the pain of Pokemon because he was trying to kind of create peace through war and destruction a little bit. So he's kind of like, it would be kind of be like that where they have good intentions of reclaiming the land, but they're going about it in such an evil, villainous way. You could have that be, you could ultimately turn them to the good side again, but you would have to fight them, and it would ultimately not end well. You know, they would be defeated, all that. But they'd be causing havoc and problems all the way through. Or you could have it the other way, where because of colonialism, you could have someone, you could have these group of people who want to take more of the land from the from the remaining indigenous people of the world, or of this region. And you actually have to try to stop them from destroying the region because they're just greedy. And you know what? It's been a while since we've had just a purely greedy, evil Pokemon team leader. So, I mean, you could go that route. Or you could do something completely different entirely. So, look, I'm just spitballing here. And this is just, it's Australia. There's other things you can do with other cultures, other places, all the way through. But they do need a new evil team. They need an actual evil team. And last but not least, they need a good, compelling story. Now, this is for something for every generation. But they still need a compelling story. Was the story of Scarlet and Violet compelling? No. The best story in Pokemon to date is, honestly, it's either Legends Arceus. Legends Arceus had a really good story to it, actually, when you got into it. It had a really, particularly near the end. Or it's Gen 5. Most people agree that the problems with Gen 5, the story's not enough. The story's actually fan-freaking-tastic in Gen 5. Scarlet and Violet has a good story. It does have it's got a better story than Galar did. That's for sure. Even I agree. The story isn't great in Galar. It's not god-awful. But honestly, I think the weakest story is still probably Gen 1. And, yeah, Gen 1's got to have the weakest story, I think. Because, I mean, Gen 6 story is really not that good either. Gen 7's got a decent story. Especially Ultra Scarlet, and Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. Ultra Violet, Ultra Scarlet. Which actually, if you were to make sequels, really wouldn't be a bad name for them. But then you're just going to draw the comparisons to the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon. So, yeah, making the story compelling, they need to be. So, again, to recap real quick. I think Gen 10 will still be on the Switch. They're going to need to work on the open world concept a bit. Work on like the graphics, definitely. Make sure there's less jank, so we're going to see a bit more of a smooth transition. You're going to have to work on concepts you already established in Scarlet and Violet and try to make them different than how they were, such as mobility, what you're actually doing in the game for your gyms, what other challenges there are in the game. You're also going to have to work on the story, and I want an evil team, an actual evil team. I'll probably do a separate video talking more about the evil team when I think of more ideas for it. By the way, any prediction videos I do for Gen 10 right now, I will be going under the assumption that it's either Italy, which is one of the things. I don't think it's Italy. Let me rephrase that. I don't think it's going to be Italy. I'm still going to go under the assumption India, but I've already done predictions for Gen 9 under the assumption it was India. So I'm going to be, any prediction videos I do for Gen 10 past year, it's going to be under the prediction that it will be an Australian-based region. And Australia really makes the most sense. It's so geographically isolated from the rest of the world that it doesn't have to be connected at all to anything. Anyway, though, I digress. Thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, if you want to review something, put in the comments below and let us know the review at some point. And I'll see you folks for the next one. Have a good one.